Hi everyone, I hope you're doing great today. Okay, so first of all, I want to very sincerely apologize for the audio situation. In the last video that I posted, I was so heartbroken when I was told what happened with that audio. You know, most of the time, I don't do the technical work. I just sit over here, shoot the videos, and then let my people do the work. And because of what had happened, and because of the fact that we've also had reports that some of our recent videos have suffered from the same situation, I've called an emergency meeting, and we are really working so hard to make sure that we don't have a repeat of that audio situation again in any one of our videos. This had never happened before, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that we don't let this happen again. So thank you so much for bearing with us. Okay, I appreciate you. So there's something that I really want to get off my chest, and I'm going to explain better so that I help all the people who may not have heard about this topic I'm about to discuss now, to know exactly what is going on. In Nigeria, we have three major tribes. We have the Igbos, we have the Hausas, and then we have the Yorubas. The Yorubas live in the western part of Nigeria, the Hausas live in the northern part of Nigeria, and the Igbos, reside in the eastern part of Nigeria. And I happen to be an Igbo man, a typical Igbo man, all right? Now, there is something that is practiced in my part of the world. It is called Osu caste system. It's a very nasty, obnoxious practice, okay? And I also hear that this Osu caste system is observed in places like India and Kenya and a few other African countries. But in my place, in eastern part of Nigeria, it is very strong. So let me explain to you what Osu caste system is. Now, Osu caste system is a caste system where a certain group of Igbos who regard themselves as the freeborns or the true bloods find it very difficult to freely relate with the ones that we classify as the outcasts or the untouchables. Now, the freeborns, up till this very day, cannot openly intermarry with the outcasts. In fact, if a man who is from the family of the so-called freeborns falls in love with a woman who happens to be from the so-called outcasts or the untouchables, I'm telling you that no matter how strong that love might be, the moment the parents of this so-called freeborn happens to hear about this or carry out an investigation and find out that their son is in love with a girl, a lady from the outcast or the untouchable family, they are going to make sure that that marriage is aborted. They wouldn't even let it go anywhere. And if the child or their son decides to go ahead with the marriage, the parents, I'm telling you this, the parents are going to suddenly pull away from everything they had to do with their marriage. In fact, in some cases, those parents of the so-called freeborn guy can actually go ahead to place a curse on their son for disobeying them to go ahead to marry someone that he is truly and genuinely in love with, simply because they believe that their son is marrying into a family of the untouchables or the outcasts. And these untouchables or outcasts actually are Igbo people. Igbos, by every single standard of being an Igbo person. And yet, they are being terribly discriminated against. I have seen situations where people committed suicide. There was a young man I knew when I started the journey in 2018 who actually was ready to kill himself because he had fallen in love with a young woman and they had done everything. They even had the introduction. They were planning for the traditional marriage. It was at that point, I think they were even done with the traditional marriage. It was after the traditional marriage, while they were planning for the white wedding, that the parents of the girl suddenly decided to make investigations into the background of the young man who happened to come from the family of these so-called untouchables. And so when they found out that the young man is from there, all of a sudden they summoned their daughter to their home and said, "How dare you put this kind of shame on our family? This marriage will not hold. You will rather kill us. We will rather die than live and watch you get married to that young man." Their daughter thought it was a joke. The young man thought it was a joke, to be honest. He told me, this is not hearsay. I met with him. He thought it was a joke. And that was how this marriage was aborted. These two people almost committed suicide. The young man said he locked himself up in his room and went on hunger strike for 2 straight weeks. It took the intervention of caring neighbors who broke into his home and pulled him out to save him. He was ready to die because this was a woman he loved with all his heart. All over Igbo land, this is what we are doing to our own kind. And yet, if you go on social media, our voices are loudest when it comes to people seeking freedom from the evils of Nigeria today. So can you see the double standard? It's so glaring. Can you see the hypocrisy? It's too humongous. You are holding someone down, but you are seeking freedom from another. How does that work, really? Doesn't the Bible say that whatsoever a man soweth, he shall reap? We are a great people. Igbos are a great, great people. In fact, something happened recently. Can you believe that the Igbo Man's Business Incubation Program is actually on its way to being featured on Harvard Business Review? Igbo Man's Business Incubation Program was also featured on TEDx. They said the Igbo Man runs the biggest business incubation program in the whole world. These guys never went to school to learn what they do. It is inherited. This is just what God has blessed us with. And so the greatest college on earth is now paying attention to something that the Igbo men grew from scratch on their own by themselves. The first Nigerian-made car that is being used in Nigeria today is made by an Igbo man who never went to school. If you go to Nnewi in Anambra State and see the technological advancement of the Igbo man, you will be completely overwhelmed. My people are blessed with talent, technologically, commercially, and otherwise. Yet, we have no say in Nigeria. Doesn't that surprise anybody? That's why we're crying every day for freedom. But God is saying, how can you cry for freedom when you have refused to free the people that I have declared free? When Christ died, he died that every man who was in bondage will be free. He has abolished everything that has to do with slavery. Every small thing we call somebody a racist. But look at us practicing racism on our own soil, and we are very proud of it. Imo State is the epicenter of that wickedness, and that's why Imo has the highest turnover of political leadership in Nigeria. Imo has been cursed with some of the worst leaders you can think of. Look at Rochas Okorocha, who just left power. The man was a lord and king unto himself. Nobody could tell him anything. He was in charge. He took over public properties. He took over private properties. He took over everything, the one that belonged to government and the one that didn't belong to government. He was just like a tyrant in the seat of power. And what is happening today? Even a young man who we thought was his friend, who many believed was his friend, who many believed he helped to come to power, which is Okechukwu, is not even disgusted by what he did and is fighting him now to take over, to reclaim the things he stole from the people. Igbo people have never enjoyed political leadership. I can't remember the last time they did. It must have been several decades ago. And why? Because in Imo State, this madness is very strong. If we don't deal with this, we will not be able to get our freedom. Freedom will not come before we deal with it. No, it will have to happen first before freedom will come. When God sent me on that errand, he told me, son, there will be 3 stages of abolition. The first stage will be spiritual abolition. The second stage will be the sensitization by traditional rulers and the eventual community-based abolition programs, which is what is now happening. That first stage happened in 2018, which was when I led that massive troop to Nri, one of the ancestral homes of the Igbo people, Nri in Anambra State, and we abolished it. And now after that, traditional rulers from Eri Kingdom, from Uguta, from different places, almost about 10 other locations, have now carried that abolition, plus the one that just happened a few days ago at Isialambano, I guess, in Imo State. This is what has been going on all over the place. So we lit the fire in 2018, just like an Olympic fire, and all these traditional rulers are now picking and lighting these little fires in their communities. So the third phase is where we are now, where we have to engage all the Southeast state governors and get them to begin to outlaw this evil practice. Let us make it a law of the land. That's when the thing is consolidated. In 1954 or 56, when we had only one assembly for the entire East, when we had the Eastern Assembly, they already outlawed this thing. There was a bill that was passed into law that actually criminalized this same Osuka system on our land. We are not asking for a new bill. We're asking the individual states in the eastern part of Nigeria to actually recognize that, activate it, and then use it to criminalize this practice. Because if we don't, we will continue to be in bondage in Nigeria. This is a fact. I'm not the only person who has said it. Bishop Obina has said it. So many other people have said the same thing. We are not stupid. I ran into a very wonderful man in Nsukka. Nsukka is in Enugu State, a medical doctor. And the man said, Joe, I want to take you to my home. And I followed him to his house. Beautiful house he set up there. And when we came into his home, he pulled his album and began to show me his beautiful daughters. Beautiful, about 4 or 5 of them, all grown. And I saw that the pictures he was showing me, his daughters were all with their husbands. And I was wondering why he was showing me the pictures. He said, Joe, you know, all these men you see on this picture, none of them is Igbo. He said, all my daughters, none of my daughters married an Igbo man. Even though they all dated Igbo people first, but they all ended up marrying outside of the Igbo land. Because the Igbo men they dated could not marry them just because they were all so-called freeborns. And their parents would not allow them to get married to my daughters because they classified my daughters as the children of slaves. And yet I am an Igbo man. I don't know any other tribe. I don't have any other ancestral tracing. A typical Igbo man. And I ask every day, what is it about this Osuka system that makes us to be so wicked to them? Before the slavery era, which brought about this Osu, because I know many people who hear about this or who read about it, they don't even know anything about it. Osuka system came about when our own Igbo brothers who were engaged in slave trade with the white men were picking people to sell to the white people for slavery. It turned out that every single person they sold had a price tag on them. But the ones that they made more money from were the affluent among us then. Now, those affluent are these people that are called the Osu today. They were rich then. So they were picking most of them and sending them to white people for slavery, selling them away. When the rest of them heard what was going on, they began to get tip-offs that, look, they are going to come to your house tomorrow or next. This one will say, oh, we heard that they are coming to your community. When they started getting all these tip-offs from the insiders in that slave trade era, they now began to run to shrines for safety to take refuge. The only place that the white slave masters and the Igbo accomplices could not go to if someone had gone to take refuge there. That's why these our people ran to the shrines to take refuge, so that nobody would sell them into slavery. And when that happened, our people then turned around and said, oh, look, they are now outcasts. They are now untouchables. They now belong to the shrines. That was the origin of this madness that is threatening to destroy us. Before this period, there was nobody in Igbo land that was regarded as Osu. If you find any tracing of Osu before this era, please contact me and I will quietly, permanently, forever shut my mouth up. I will never speak on this matter again. There was none. It was simply because they went to take refuge at the shrines. They were not there to worship the shrine. They didn't believe in the God that ruled the shrine. They only went to take refuge. And for that, we now classify them, and the classification now lives after them several generations later. It doesn't make any sense in the world. Even the so-called slaves that were sold to America have now regained their freedom and are even now taking political positions. But in Igbo land, our own brothers cannot take chieftaincy titles. They can't even be regarded as human beings. In some locations, they cannot go to the same market with the so-called freeborns. They can't shake hands with the freeborns. I have situations where a young man told me that he shook hands with a certain freeborn, and they made that woman that he shook hands with to pay a fine, because she shook hands with one that was classified to be an outcast or untouchable. This happened just a year or 2 years ago in our land. How can these people wish and pray for you to have freedom from Nigeria? I know too well, I am not making this up. I know because I know that most of the people who wield political power and influence in Igbo land are still the same people we classify as Osu in Igbo land. So imagine that they are in a place where decision is being made on what will happen to Igbo people in Nigeria. Do you think they are going to willingly give their support for anything that will help us to gain freedom? When we are so terribly wicked to them, when these people cannot be treated as human beings on our land. I see preachers who claim to be preachers, and they are supporting this thing. The fight to abolish this nonsense is not just only the government one. The church has to get involved in it, and I'm so excited that the church is now getting involved in the community abolition that's taking place. But we still have so-called Pentecostal preachers, and most of the ones I've seen are actually Pentecostal preachers who are strongly standing in support of this Osuka system. A preacher, he gets up and says, they can go and marry, but over my dead body will any of them come and marry my daughter? And you are a preacher. No, you are not a preacher. You are a satanic priest. How can you be a preacher and you read the same Bible that says that if a man be in Christ, all things are passed away, behold, all things have become new, and yet you classify your fellow human being as Osu? Listen, I know people have said this to me several times. Brother Joe, why don't you go and marry? If marriage was something that you could just walk into anywhere and pick a woman and marry, I bet you before God and man, I will be the first person that will go out there and I will specifically tell everybody, if you are not Osu, I don't want to marry you. I would have said that. If not, that marriage is something you have to prayerfully seek the face of God and make him show you who your wife really is. If not so, I will make sure that no matter who I marry, she must come from the so-called Osu stock. You claim that when you marry Osu, that you're going to have bad luck. You're going to have this misfortune. You're going to have that. You're going to have that. Why is it that the same Osu girls will now go and marry others, marry Yoruba, marry Edo Kogi, and nothing will happen? They will even prosper the more. If they are prospering, but when they marry you, they don't prosper, who do you think the problem is coming from? It simply means you're the one who has the problem. The so-called people you call Osu are the richest we have in Igbo land today. They have the finest of all the women you can think of in Igbo land today. They do so well. They are very educated. Why are we casting out our own treasure? Yoruba people are extending all the way to Kogi, to other places, to claim people who even speak a little bit of Yoruba. But we are casting out the one that is in us. Look at a time in Nigeria when there is so much confusion everywhere. When Buhari and his people are getting ready to destroy every fabric of our society, especially southern Nigeria. People are banding together, coming together. The Igbos are busy scattering their own. How can you succeed? How far can you go? Let every single state in eastern Nigeria begin to tell their assemblies, please, outlaw this thing. Let there be a price to pay for anybody who stops his child or his daughter or son from getting married because the other person is so-called Osu. Don't tell me, hey, it is our tradition. No, it is not your tradition. It's not our tradition. It's only an expression of wickedness. And we must stop it so we can go forward. I'm tired of the nonsense. It makes my heart break. Look at the one that happened at Isialambano. We heard that there were still some individuals who went there to sabotage it in the 21st century, in 2021. You were still fighting against the abolition of Osu in Imo State. And then look at what is happening in Imo. God is extremely angry. Mark my words. He's angry. And this is why I said, I'm going to get this off my chest. And I'm going to call every person who loves Igbo land, every person who loves the Igbos, I'm going to call on you to please get involved in this. First of all, these people who had an abolition in Imo State, the so-called guys who wanted to sabotage it, put them in debt. They called me, they put them in debt now, and they're looking for money. I'm going to call for partners who will join me to raise their money for them. And we're going to raise more money to support any other community in Igbo land that wants to abolish Osu. If you are in love, don't cave in. If they are pushing you, don't leave your love. Get in touch with me. We will support you and we will make sure you get married. Enough of this nonsense. Hopefully very, very soon, I'll be able to reach out to all the state governors and see who is going to get started for us on time on this one. We will succeed and we will gain our freedom. Nothing can stop us because the time is now. May God bless you.